I thought my bell was broken. Welcome everybody to the March 5th meeting of the Columbia Rotary Club. We're going to be sitting here fighting with this microphone all day, so enjoy. We're going to go ahead and get started with Rusty DePass and Audrey Brown.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I'm going to ask John Asman to come up and he'll lead us in our invocation.
Thank you. Please join me in prayer. Most Holy God, in this busyness of the day, as we quiet ourselves for this moment, we call on you to hear our prayers. We pray that all we think and all we say and all we do will be pleasing in your sight. We thank you for the bounty and goodness of this food, and thank you for the hands that help prepare it and serve it. Now be with us during our time together this midday. Most gracious God, we ask that you'll be with Representative Smith as he shares his message with us today. In these worldly times, when so many of us are divided by matters, politics, religion, make your will known to us. Make your presence known to all of our local, state, national, and world leaders, such that they may pause and reflect on what you would have them do. Be with them, guide them, and direct them. And now, Father, we thank you for sharing your creation with us. Thank you for this time today so that we can share with each other. Guide us to focus on the needs of others, how we should recognize others, how we should love others, and how we should serve others. We pray together as your people, so thankful for your grace upon us and your presence with us. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, John. Somebody will hold up the cart buckets on your table. Good job. Make sure you put money in the cart buckets. Dig deep. Mariva, are you ready? All right. Mariva Harris is going to come up. She's got visiting Rotarians and guests. We've got a lot of guests here today. And do you want a microphone?
Yeah, I'll just do it. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to not only one of the biggest Rotary clubs in Columbia, but the best club in Columbia. How about that? And you make it the best by coming to Rotary and getting out of that office every Monday, because it is so good to see each and every face in here. I am so glad to be recovered from the flu. It feels so good to be back among the living and not the almost dead. But welcome again, every one of you, to Rotary. I do want to let you know that on my job at Benedict College, although I'm still there, I am the new director for scholarship programs. And so it is exciting to me to also be a part of the scholarship committee here at Rotary. and to thank every one of you for how you touch the future through the contributions that you made for our scholarship program. Another fact, this month is Women's History Month, so I hope you will take the time to honor a woman or the contributions that women have made to our society. So at this time, if you have a guest with you, would you please stand, because I did not get any visiting Rotarian slips from the front. So we'll go ahead and start with our visitors.
Good afternoon, I'm Catherine Davis, and I have as my guest today one of the best daughters in the world. It's ours, and her name is Lauren Davis Green. She's the Vice President at Synovus Bank and is a private wealth advisor.
Thank you. I'm Rusty DePass, and my guest today is Hunter Wilson, who is a mechanical sales engineer with Hoffman & Hoffman in Casey.
Hello everyone, I'm Glenn Ward. I'm very happy to have as my guest today A.J. Hernandez. A.J. moved here with his wife and little son from the Tampa area about a year ago. He is Executive Director of the Downtown Y here in Columbia. A.J.
Thank you, guys. Is it live? If you stand. I have three of my partners with me from Merrill Lynch. By the way, my name is Jim Smith. Phillips McDowell, Brent Roof, and Ladd Lumpkin, who is also our Chief Investment Officer in the group of TCG and Associates. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Mary Ballback, and my guest is Patty Lolis. Patty and I met in Leadership Columbia a really long time ago, and she is retired from DHEC.
Okay, thank you again. Have an awesome week, and look forward to seeing you next Monday.
Thank you, Veriva. We appreciate you. Always a smiling face walking in the door. And I think most of our months have been booked. Amanda Strickland has done an amazing job making sure that there's a friendly face waiting for you when you come in these meetings. But if you're interested in doing it, especially if you're a new Rotarian, I suggest very highly that you stand at that door and meet everybody that comes in. It's a great way to meet people. I'm going to go ahead and ask Mr. Carl Byers to come up here and make his announcement about some golf.
Thank you, Carrie. So, I think, first of all, good afternoon and happy spring-ish, because the ish goes along with that 30 degrees we woke up to this morning. But fear not, because we're going to spring forward Sunday morning. Y'all remember that? And we're also working on that weather for later April. So we have a great club, as Reba said. We love our club. It's the best in Columbia, and we love what we do. We make a lot of great charitable contributions and a lot of great efforts. And to do that, we need financing. And to do that, we need participation. We're not selling pecans. We're not selling prunes. Although, done a little homework. This is the BR-35 model. It's a prototype model. It's patterned after the F-35. Vertical takeoff and landing. It's stealth. It's very maneuverable. And it's a little more affordable. But Carrie's not asked us to sell brooms. So breathe a sigh of relief. But if she did ask us to sell brooms, I know we would get behind that effort, and we would make Carrie a success, and we would sell brooms. But she's asked us to do something else, something more fun, and that's raise money through our golf tournament. And on your tables is a flyer, looks a little familiar. It's new and improved, just like our golf tournament. So this is your opportunity. So I come to you today with two messages. One, save the day. April 23rd. We've all got these, so put it in there, keep it sacred. And the second is participate. So there's a lot of ways to participate in the golf tournament. I think you all know these, but I'm going to review them with you. You can come play and bring a guest, have fun. You can be a sponsor, and there's all different ways of sponsoring, different levels. If you look on the back, you'll see the different sponsor levels, and Carrie will speak more to that in a little bit. You could actually sponsor a player. If you can't play, sponsor somebody to come play. It's $80. You can also bring door prizes. We have a lot of fun giving out our door prizes, and so you can help the golf tournament effort by donating door prize. And last but not least, you can volunteer. So there's all kind of ways to do it. If you're playing, we've got the golfer entry form here. What we do is we flight the teams. We have a Rotary division, and then we have a pro division. And we use the handicaps to flight the teams. So I call your attention to the 4-way test when you fill out the handicap, please. You can also come out and join us for lunch or join us for dinner. This year we're going to start a little earlier. We moved it up an hour. And that's try to help us get out an hour early. If we can beat that rush hour coming from Blythewood, it's going to help a lot. So we, again, save the date, participate. Right quickly, I'd like to introduce the golf committee. You just raise your hand. Tom Gammon on drums. I'll make that, he's our sound guy. Jerry Smith on printing. Bob Diggle, pairings and incorporating the sponsorship teams. Andy Shane is volunteer. He volunteered this morning to be our volunteer coordinator. John Bacus is our liaison with Windermere. So you can come to any one of us and we'll help you in any way we can. Save the date. Participate. Thank you.
Park my vehicle back out there and just make sure you leave the keys in it outside. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so golf tournaments are really fun, right? And so I wanted to challenge all of you who have businesses, with those really nice pop-up tents and, bring a specialty drink if you'd like to, have lots of interesting treats for the golfers, but come out there, show your Rotary spirit, but also it's a great way to showcase your business when you come out there. So hold sponsorships, put a tent on the tee box. We can do that this year, and I hope that everybody will participate. We'll be talking about it a lot. So right now I'm going to go ahead and move on to Blake Buchanan. We're going to do Discover Rotary, and Blake's going to come up before we get to health and happiness. Blake hasn't been with us all that long, but a couple of years, so y'all get to know him.
Thank you, President Gary. So she said I hadn't been here that long, so it's really only been 2 years. About, I guess, March of 2016 that I've been in the club. Now, I've been in Columbia since 2004. But I'll tell you a little bit about myself and sort of how I arrived right here. I was born in Hartsville, South Carolina, so just an hour up the road. For those of you, if we have any folks in the PD around here, you'll know where that is. And I graduated I was born in 1974, I graduated from Clemson in 1996. And thank you, there's a few out there. There's a few out there. There's just much rusty, that's it, that's all. So, when I graduated Clemson, I worked in a bunch of different jobs. I kind of moved around. Actually moved back to Hartsville a little bit for a while. Went up to Western New York, Statesboro, Georgia, out to Jefferson City, Missouri. So it's just kind of a lot of moving every couple of years, and then kind of decided I was going to get into sports management at the time, around the early 2000s. And once I finished there and got into sports, that's when I settled in Columbia, South Carolina. And like I said, in 2004. And since I moved here, I met my wife, and we've been married for 12 years. We have 3 kids, and one turned 10 today, and the other daughter's 6 and 3. So we have 3 kids. Live kind of downtown. Kids go to Satchel Ford, but we attend Shannon United Methodist. So everything that I do is kind of all right downtown-ish. The reason I moved to Columbia, which we find kind of interesting, which we just said that I went to Clemson, was I was working in sports and I got a job with University of South Carolina. So I worked for Gamecock Sports Marketing for all those years. So it was kind of odd, obviously, moving here at that time and had to put on a garnet black every day, pretty much. And I think I hid it from most people. I didn't tell them where I went to school because I was trying to sell Gamecock athletics. So I worked with Audrey Brown for years, and I don't remember when I told her that I actually went to Clemson because I was afraid of losing business. So I just didn't tell most people. I just kind of kept quiet in Columbia. But once they found out, some people did say that was pretty cool. You were able to work, both sides of the room. I could go out and talk Clemson, talk Carolina. And so that was pretty good, that was a nice way to meet people here in Columbia. And one of the things that I did when I first moved here was, how do I get involved in town? How do I meet more people? I didn't really want to do leads groups and things like that. So my dad had been in the Lions Club in Hartsville for years. And it's funny, in Hartsville, all of the baseball teams, the Little League that we played for, Dixie Youth, were sponsored by Kiwanis, Rotary, Civitans, JCs, and Lions. So we all played on those teams for years. And I knew about it a little bit, and I started doing research, here. And Audrey was a member of this club and talked about coming. But what I did is I didn't actually join this club to start with. I joined one that was a little on the younger side and met at night. It was the Vista Nights. I'll be honest, at 30, I felt a little out of place in here at that time. So I joined that club. I did that for a couple of years. But, I'd say, it was a couple of years there of lack of attendance and participation, being a young club with a lot of young folks. I kind of got out of Rotary. And then a few years ago, I started working with the Columbia Fireflies, so that's where I'm at now. So there's 31 days until first pitch, 31 days. So if you need tickets, now's the time. We still have them, plenty of them. And so call me, but we're about 4.5 weeks from first pitch. But when I got back, or went to work for the Fireflies, being a brand new kind of company in town, and I started meeting a few other people, and Audrey and I have been in touch for all these years, and she's always kind of invited me back. But I started to meet other people through the Fireflies that were also members, and Hal Stevenson and others, and they invited me again to come. And so I came back here in around beginning of 2016, and started to realize there was a lot of people in here I knew that I had just met over time. Some of you I met, you never told me you're in Rotary, so we need to tell everybody. Obviously, we need to talk about it, talk it up, and tell people what you do. Some people just didn't bring it up, but once I got in here and realized there was a lot of people in here that I knew, and great people, and I decided to join, at that time. And I've enjoyed it, and you do kind of get your feet wet reading, so I have done that, and that is a great way to actually meet people and introduce yourself when you first join the club. That's a really good idea. And so now I'm kind of looking forward to doing that again, or getting more involved with Stephen as he takes over later this summer, and getting involved in different committees and things throughout over the next couple of years and beyond. So that is my Discover Rotary moment.
Thank you, Blake. And without further ado, we're going to ask Elliot Powell to come up and lead us in health and happiness. Hopefully he's got some funny stuff for us today. If not, get your tomatoes ready, everyone.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. What a wonderful weekend we had. If you're a Gamecock. Yeah, the basketball team won the SEC tournament, became the first all-team in history. They broke Mississippi State's 32-game winning record, which was the longest record in the nation at the time. And the last time they were beat was when they lost to us in the national championship. So it's a nice little ad for them as well. Our own Asia Wilson, Roscoe and I met each other working on the United Way campaign years ago. John Asman was our leader at the time. Really became good friends with him and watched Asia grow up, blossom over at Heathwood Hall School. Just amazing what she's been able to accomplish. She is a 3-time tournament MVP. She's the SEC Player of the Year. Again, 3 years in a row. She's never lost an SEC tournament game. Pretty cool. Broke the all-time scoring record during the tournament. 4-year All-American and likely to be chosen as the National Player of the Year. She also would like to let you know, and I think it's a significant point, that she will most likely be the #1 player drafted in the WNBA, which translates into some pretty good money. So, congratulations to the South Carolina. Men's baseball team also handed Clemson their first loss of the season. I won't say anything more about that. I will say that in this small state, we had about 40 players combined on both of those teams that are from this state. This state produces some real good athletes. If you haven't seen it, there is a special right now going on ESPN about the miracle that Frank Martin and his family experienced when he was at K-State, just starting at K-State, and had a very strange illness that they say nearly killed him. I won't tell you any more about it, but look for it because it's really, really good, and it's getting a lot of press nationally. Okay, I'm going to let y'all remind the new members. On your badge, if you've got a new member there, you can just peel that label off after 6 months, just a reminder. If you need a badge, let me know. I'll put the badge man. Many of y'all remember John Roy Folsom. If there's anyone in the club that had a special relationship, Rotary relationship with John, if you'll look for me, we're going to do something special for him soon, and I just need some more participation and insight into him. I knew him through my father. He and my father were regular foursomes at the golf course, so that's why his nickname was Chip and Putt. Great guy. We want to remember Billy Graham today. We had 2 crusades here in Columbia, one in 1950 and one in 1987. That one in 1987, I think, reached 180,000 people. Really, really well done crusade. Good news for Jack Sloan. I think it was mentioned before, but Jack's organization, Paul Meadow, P-A-W, Meadow Lifeline, is the #1 nonprofit in Columbia. So give Jack a big round. Ann Walker is with us today. Happy to see you back, Ann. You spent 17 days in the hospital during February, so we're so excited to see you back. Give Ann a hand. Crutchfield's son, Tommy, has just been named the new president of the board of the Salvation Army. So give Bob a big hand. Another son that's head of the Chamber of Commerce, so I think it doesn't fall far from the tree. State Prayer Breakfast is coming up, and Bob and Glenn Ward are 2 people you might want to see to get tickets to that. It's March 21st. It's an early morning breakfast, and it's always good. Just always. I hadn't missed one in probably 25 years. I got called to do this kind of at the last minute, and so when you do that, you kind of scramble. One of the things that's always kind of fun to do, you can do it any day of the week, just pick up Google and say, okay, what happened on this day of significance in history? Just pull a few of them out. In 1496, English King Henry VII grants John Cabot a commission to explore for new lands. In 1558, smoking tobacco was introduced to Europe by a Spaniard physician, Franco Fernandez. How about that? The physician started this whole thing. One thing I thought was really interesting that I didn't really know about was 1770 was on this day was the Boston Massacre. British soldiers killed 5 men in the crowd throwing snowballs and stones and sticks at them. An African-American, Crispus Attucks, was the first to die later was held up as the early black martyr, and the massacre galvanized the anti-British feelings. Crispus was the first man to be killed by the British during the 1770 Boston Massacre and is considered to be the first man to die in the Revolutionary War, which is pretty amazing. He was part Native American as well. Skipping a little time, 1956, King Kong was first televised. 1969, gold reaches then record high of $47 per ounce in Paris. Thanks a little bit. On the way over here, it just so happened to coincidentally that the song came on the radio. 1971, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin was first played for the first time. And getting through this, 1994, the largest milkshake was made of 1,955 gallons of chocolate in South Africa. Another thing about this started to make me feel old. In 2 years, 1990 will be 30 years ago. That blows my mind. I feel really old. Got a couple of minutes. Share with you something. I really like Chuck Foxworthy. He's one of those guys that just has good, clean humor, and all of you know about his, your redneck gift. Well, this is extreme rednecks. You're an extreme redneck when you let your 14-year-old daughter smoke at the dinner table in front of her kids. You're an extreme redneck if you wonder how service stations keep their restrooms so clean. You're an extreme redneck if you think Dom Perignon is a mafia leader. You're an extreme redneck if your wife's hairdo was once ruined by a ceiling fan. You're an extreme redneck if you think the last words of the Star Spangled Banner is, "Gentlemen, start your engines." You're an extreme redneck if you go outside to get something out of the fridge. You're an extreme redneck if you just need one more hole punched in your car to get a free tattoo at the tattoo house. House of Tattoos. You're an extreme redneck if you think loading the dishwasher means getting your wife drunk. That one I knew I would probably get in trouble with, but Milton said some things a few weeks ago. I felt like I could get away with that. I really got over the board with this. Two good old boys in Arkansas in a trailer park was sitting around talking one afternoon over a cold beer and getting off work from the horse trailer manufacturing plant. And after a while, the first guy says to the second one, "If I was to sneak over to the trailer on Saturday and make love to your wife while you was hunting, and she got pregnant and had a baby, would that make us kin?" And the second one looked kind of cockeyed and thought a second and looked sideways again. A minute later, scratched his head, squinted his eyes, thinking real hard about the question. Finally, he says, "Well, I don't know about kin, but it sure make us even." America is the only country where a significant portion of the population believes that professional wrestling is real, but the moon landing was fake. I'll end with this. Always a good setup. An old Italian proverb: after the game, the king and the pawn go into the same box. Have a good day.
All right, you gotta follow that. I do want to make one quick announcement. Yesterday, March 4th, was Jack Van Loan's Freedom Day. So if you want to send him a note, I apologize. I normally send out a message to the whole club on his Freedom Day. But if you want to send him a note, he always loves to hear from everybody. That was a wonderful day for his family and for all of us when he was released. So without further ado, Jim Smith, come on up.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'm very proud to present James Emerson Smith Jr. to you today. There's a pretty good little bio on the front. I'm just going to run through it in the interest of time. It's kind of short, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time to hear his message. James Smith was born and raised in Columbia, South Carolina. He's married to Kirkland Thomas of Mount Pleasant. They're blessed with the proud parents of Emerson, Thomas, Paul, and Shannon. Beautiful grandchildren, too. They attend church at Trinity Episcopal Cathedral, the church where he grew up. James is currently a member of the South Carolina House of Representatives, a major in South Carolina Army National Guard, a small business owner, a practicing attorney, and his entire life has been directed to service for his community, state, and nation. I'd also point out to you he's a USC graduate, both undergraduate and law school. That was where he formed his first business, kind of unknowns to his parents, or at least his father. He recruited 4 other undergraduate students, and they put together a band. And I was really proud of him because I just was observing the first time this band put together. They really practiced in our garage. They had a beat-up car that they went all around to play, and really not much in the way of equipment. Well, by the time they finished the 3 years at USC, they had really done a great job of reinvesting. They went to a van, and then next to a big old panel truck, and they had incredible amounts of equipment and huge speakers. And they basically marketed themselves to all of the schools, fraternities and sororities, I'm sure as well, throughout all of the SEC and ACC schools in the Southeast, which was great. He built quite a nice business. It's the Root Doctors. They still perform, almost 30 years later. One of the things I didn't, realize is his father it's pretty hard to get in that truck on Wednesday afternoon, cover everywhere from Raleigh to Durham to Asheville, and then back to USC late Sunday night, and then jump up and go to class on Monday morning. So these guys, they all made it through, and as I mentioned, while James is no longer he still has a band, but he's not practicing in that group. Also, I would point out some of the other stories about, he served 8 years as a JAG officer in the South Carolina Army National Guard, and when in 2001, he visited Ground Zero in New York, and I didn't realize we were quite so emotional with me. So let me let you take over and talk a little about that. One of the things I will say is that when he wanted to switch from JAG to infantry, he had great support here, and certainly in the South Carolina National Guard, they were very supportive of doing that. But the Army was not. And he went up to see the head personnel. He talked to everybody. He went up to see the head personnel guy and the general in Washington. And that guy said, well, sure, son, you can stick around and be you can stay as a JAG officer. Maybe you'll make lieutenant colonel or colonel. Or, tell you what you can do. You can resign your commission. You can, re-enlist in the Army out here at Fort Jackson. Go through that. You can apply for OCS, and maybe if you're lucky, you'll get that. You finish that up along with infantry school in Fort Benning. And the interesting thing is that that'll probably take you a year or so, and if you're lucky, maybe you will get deployed. Shortly thereafter, the oldest inductee at Fort Jackson was there at age 37.
Thank you, Dad. Anything that I have ever been able to do or accomplish has been because of the love and support that I've gotten from my parents, Jim and Nina Smith, and they are the very best. And If you could pick your parents, I couldn't pick two better parents than I have in my parents, Jim and Nina Smith, because anything and everything that I've ever accomplished is because of their love and support and encouragement. It is such a wonderful opportunity to be in front of the Columbia Rotary Club. You all have been a part of my life, you don't realize it, but in a big way, many years. Early on, I took a trip to France, young at 16 years old, thanks to the Rotary Youth Exchange. Had a tremendous experience, came back, and one of the earliest times I had an opportunity to get in front of this organization was speaking to tell you about that experience, and then later been back to talk to you about the General Assembly, to talk to you about my combat service in Afghanistan. And it all comes full circle. I remember Andrew, your father, Crawford, introducing me, who incidentally, Crawford and my grandfather, my father's father, were among the best of friends and served on the Stansbury together in World War II and went through a lot together. But it's that value. It's that value that my father, Jim Smith, and Nina my mother gave to me. It's that commitment to service to others. It's what brings us all here today. It's why you all are Rotarians, and it's what we believe in. We have an obligation. It's a commitment. It's about living our lives for things more important than ourselves, and that's what you all do every day. And that's what I've tried to do, live in my parents' values. And tell you a brief story about leaving the JAG Corps, which I love dearly, had a wonderful time there, and then moving to the infantry. It's usually you do it the other way. You're in the infantry for a while, and you decide you want to go to the JAG Corps. But so yeah, I made that commitment. General Lemoyne, who was the 4-star Army G1, who I was speaking to over the phone, said, "This is the way you want to do it, Smith. You got to do it." So I resigned my commission one day and re-enlisted the next day. And when you show up at drills to basic training at 37, I promise you, your drill sergeants don't think you've been very successful in life. They want you out of their army, not only then, but right then, and that day. So they worked as hard as they could to get me to quit first day on the ground, and wasn't going to have anything of it. The guy across from me, who we were doing back drills, and I mean, it was a horrible moment. Apparently his talcum powder busted, and in the midst of all this sweat, he had this talcum powder covering his face, and I couldn't help but laugh. It was a pretty silly sight. He didn't think it was very funny, but drill sergeants got on me for another couple hours after that because of that. But 2 weeks right before graduation, I'll never forget, I was in the House serving, and been grateful to do that. Jim Hodges was governor. I was just privileged to be the primary sponsor of something called First Steps to School Readiness. We made that into law. Big leap in the positive direction for early childhood education, and as governor, I'm going to continue that in a big way, which we'll talk a little bit about. But I remember going from the Lace House to cleaning latrines at 2 in the morning and thinking, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? And but 2 weeks beforehand, I tried to low profile it. But when the presidential candidate John Kerry says he wants to be at the graduation, and all these general officers start wanting to show up, they start beginning to wonder, and then the drill sergeant goes home one day and comes busting in the room at 5:30. We're always trying to get ready for him, and as I would tell my fellow soldiers, my recruits, you're never going to get it right. You're always going to get smoked no matter what. Well, this morning was my turn, and the door bust open, and the drill sergeant just says, "Smith, push." Yes, drill sergeant. I mean, I'm down on the ground doing push-ups, and says, "Smith, you ruined my chicken dinner last night. Just when I'm about to forget all you crazies, I get home, and you're all over the TV. Flutter kick, Smith." Oh, Lord, I roll over, start doing flutter kicks, and says, "Smith," talking to all the soldiers, says, "Smith is apparently some kind of politician. More push-ups, Smith." "Yes, sir, drill sergeant. Yes, drill sergeant, doing push-ups." And he goes down the hall. This goes on for a while, and it's towards the end, he's just smoking me and having too much of a good time of it. And he comes up and, sweat's beating down my forehead, and he goes, "Smith, I can't believe it. You mean I can smoke a lawyer, a politician, and a former officer all at the same time?" I said, "You a drill sergeant's dream, Smith." I was, and I had a Delta Oscar Sierra, which meant drop on sight. And so I was always a platoon guy, and as soon as I hit right and left forward, march with my unit, and I saw my drill sergeant, and I was on the ground low crawling, and my unit marches off without me, but it was another good character building experience. But my drill sergeants, I'll never forget him. This was Drill Sergeant Ortega, and he gave me everything I needed to prepare for the future that was ahead of me, and of all of the young men and women I was privileged to train with. And going back at age 37, it was an extraordinary experience to be there with them and them to be there in support of me, and that's been the case where there was basic training or OCS or IOBC and all of those gates. And I did have one of the most remarkable privileges. I was just one of hundreds of thousands who've had the privilege of serving our great nation, but leading two teams in Afghanistan and operating in some of the most remote places in the world, I learned a lot about serving others. My nine-man team, 6 were received Purple Hearts, but thank God they all made it home. One died in the care of the VA sometime later. Several who were severely affected by PTSD. Still stay in touch with them every day. But the commitment, the total commitment we had to each other, to serve each other, to make sure we were doing everything to set each other for success. And there was never a doubt at any moment that we would be there for each other till the very last, if it need be. That type of commitment, that sense of love, that sense of devotion, is the kind of servant leadership I think we need in South Carolina. The commitment to our people, to making sure they have what they need to succeed. And that they are the most important thing in making a decision. That we're not going to make decisions for ourselves personally, politically. What's in my best interest in politics? What is in the best interest of South Carolina? That's what a leader does. And that's the kind of commitment we got to have. My service in the General Assembly, I've often been heard to say this at the floor because I believe in it in my core. You got to care more about doing the job than keeping the job. You got to care more about those that you're impacting and making the right decisions for them than what the impact is for you. If you do that, you're going to make the right decision. It's the fundamental test of leadership. Are you going to make the decision in the right way that is for those that you serve, or are you going to make it for yourself? And I think we've got to expect that from our leaders. I want to talk to you about a number of issues that I've been privileged to be a part of and where I think are so important for the future of our state. Early on in this race, it became clear to me in making the decision of whether or not to run that, I don't believe anybody in this room believes that we ought to be on the last or the bottom of any list, that we ought to even be near 50th in education. Or I think the newest report came out, had us at 48th. Even at 48th, every one of us know we can and should be doing a lot better than that. And it's time again to have an education governor in South Carolina. And that's why I was very grateful that Dick Riley, who to know Dick is to love and respect him, early on never endorsed in a primary before in his long, illustrious career. Couldn't wait to have the moment to come and endorse me in this race as the next education governor for South Carolina. Because we need that focus. And what I'll do as governor are these things. One is I'm going to make sure, money is important in our education system. Right now, we are among the lowest of starting salaries for teachers in the country. We're at 48th right now. We've got to ensure that we value our teachers more than we're doing right now. We're below the southeastern average in salaries. I talked to a lady from Minnesota, came here to teach, loves teaching, took a $37,000 pay decrease to come to South Carolina. And oh, by the way, instead of 5 out of 7 periods a day, she's teaching 6 out of 7 periods. How are we going to make sure that we provide the very best in the rural parts of our state? And that's the other part of this, is we cannot forget, and we must all understand, and I know everyone in this room understands, that how someone's doing in Allendale matters just as much here or in Anderson, or how someone's doing in Greenville versus Greeleyville. You ought to be able to access the world. As governor, I'm going to make sure we have high-speed internet, whether you're in Greenville or Greeleyville or Anderson or Allendale, because I think that's what we ought to have, and I've got a plan to get us there. There is a way to do this. We can look at some successes at Scotch Branch High School and Colleton High School. Scotch Branch, incidentally, has a particular place in the history of our state. It's where the Briggs versus Elliott case occurred, which ultimately became Brown versus Board of Education. And they are showing huge improvement from having failing average yearly progress report cards now to good and even doing better, something called the new tech method. I'm a big believer. I don't care, all these kids, wherever they come from, they can learn, and they deserve access to a high-quality education. And we can deliver it to them. And it's not just a question of financial resources. It's a question of innovation and the kind of focus that needs to be given, and leadership. And we just spent, my dad and I had a wonderful weekend celebrating my grandmother, his mother's 100th birthday. And it was a wonderful celebration, and that deserves a round of applause. She is, we carry her and my grandfather's legacy in what we do every day, and living up to the wonderful values and traditions that they've lived for. But one of my cousins is a devoted, worked with the KIP program and has gone to some of the most rural and impoverished places in our nation, has been able to build up high quality, high performing educational institutions where those students are performing at or better than some of the most wealthiest districts in those same areas. And it's all about leadership and commitment and reform. I want to lower class sizes, which I can do. And I'm committed. We know what to do. We really know how to improve education in our state. We've got to have the leadership willing to take us there. And year after year after year, that's not been on the agenda in South Carolina. It needs to be. It needs to be for all of us because it's fundamental to our economic future. If you look at what's happening in our state, we've had tremendous opportunities in attracting new industry to South Carolina and growing opportunities. Well, we've got thousands of jobs that are not filled. The biggest challenge now is delivering on the educated workforce to make sure that they're there. And to do that, we've got to have the education system to do that. I believe in having a high quality education program, and I know how to get us there, and I'll make it happen. I'll also tell you that we've got to get back to funding equity. There is an initiative to take us to a statewide millage rate. It's like turning a battleship though, right? It's about beginning to make the formula right and making the right investments. You can't do it overnight, but we can get there with the right investment. I also want to mention to you Medicaid, healthcare, expanding, Steve, you know this very well at Blue Cross, and all my friends are here part of healthcare. We are missing out. It is no longer anymore to think that it would be fiscally irresponsible to not access our dollars. These are your tax dollars, $2 billion a year going to other states to pay for health care for other citizens, right? It didn't cost another cent in taxes of anyone in this room to deliver $20 billion and 40,000 jobs here. Hundreds of thousands of our fellow South Carolinians don't have coverage, and consequently they don't get care. Their concerns get worse, healthcare concerns get worse, they show up to an emergency room. It costs 10 times as much for that care. You all end up paying for it in increased healthcare costs and increased insurance premiums, and your dollars continue to go elsewhere. And if Congress has their way, and if our president has his way, they're going to cut that off at 2016 levels. So that means there is a permanent, huge population of our state that will never have access to coverage in any conceivable way because it's not going to come from the State House, and it's going to cause a huge continued economic problem in our state. So I'm for this. I'm for accepting our dollars. I will expand Medicaid, but not just a pure happenstance process. We've written a plan. It's the South Carolina plan that's going to focus those resources where we need them most. We've got a program to help small businesses provide health care coverage to the workers, and you use this expansion process to do that. I'm also going to make sure when you participate in this that we build medical homes. It's about not just expanding Medicaid, but it's improving health care outcomes. And it's investing in preventive care. Because when you do that, you save dollars. When you make the right investments early on, it helps in the long term. And so we're going to build medical homes with putting hundreds of thousands of our citizens back on care, and then we're going to make sure that they have this relationship with a physician that supports and encourages preventative care and a healthy lifestyle. And it's going to save us all money. And these are the right, good, common sense things that we need to do. I'm also going to make sure that we, fix our energy future. All right, we've all heard a lot about this, the Baseload Review Act. I like to think if I wasn't in Afghanistan at the time, facing our nation's enemies and closing with and dealing with them for a year, I'd have been here to vote against the Baseload Review Act, and we would have never been here. But that not being the case, when the bill passed, I was overseas. But look, it has got to be a priority to not just fix what happened, but to understand how it happened. Who's responsible for our energy plan? Where is the state program to decide what we need in terms of our energy future? Did we ever need 2 new nuclear plants? Is that something that really our citizens need? Obviously, we don't seem to need it right now. They're not going to get built, and the lights are still on, and we're moving the state forward. But yet we've got a $9 billion loss, much of which is falling on the shoulders of those in this room and many around the state. To fix that, one, I believe fundamentally we've got to demand payment of all of that back. And there are ways to do it, even within the Dominion plan, to make sure that those that have lost are paid back, particularly individuals and small business owners. We can do that, and there's a way to do it. But going forward, we need to have an independent consumer advocate that speaks on behalf of all of us as ratepayers, and that is tied to a statewide office holder. That's why I wrote in the legislation and authored and passed to make sure that we have an independent consumer advocate that's going to be tied to the Attorney General, and if they don't get it right, you can vote them out of office. Who's responsible now? Who do you point to for failing us now? It's hard to tell. Next, I'm going to make sure that we have our own energy plan. I'm going to take the energy office, and it's going to be a cabinet level. There'll be a secretary reporting directly to me, and we're going to write our own energy future. And we're going to make sure that we incorporate renewables and wind, and that we drive our rates down. There was a time, I remember, just in my service in the House, where we had among the lowest rates in the country. We attracted industry to South Carolina because we had low rates. Well, now we're among the highest, and it's been reported many, many times about how high our rates are, and that hurts our competitiveness. And it hurts particularly those who are on fixed incomes who can't find always the ability to pay their light bill, their prescriptions, their food, and their mortgage. And we got to fix that for the working families in our state. And one of the ways to get there is to invite and bring in more renewables, more lower cost alternatives for our citizens. And there's a bill that will be up in full committee yesterday or tomorrow that will help begin to move that. These are issues that I have not just sort of thought about now, just sort of occurred to me. This was a great idea. I think I'll run for governor and do that. These are things I've been working on for 2 decades, and I know how to get things done. I passed over 50 or 60 major pieces of legislation in the House and the Senate and in the law by understanding how to work with others. We have got to find a place in our politics where we realize that there's so many other things more important than party: our faith, our family, our country, our community, our state, so many areas where we share all in common a desire for a better future for the next generation. And there's so much space in all those where we can work together to carve a way forward to improve our state and making it what we all know it can be. And I am committed to doing that. This is an extraordinary time, I believe, for South Carolina. And it's going to take a leader who has the ability to bring people together, has the ability to focus on the things that really matter, to not get distracted by some of these cultural battles that often want to consume the headlines, but in the end don't educate a child or pave a road or move our state forward in any way. I will be committed, as I always have been, on those things that make a difference for our families, for our businesses, and create opportunities for our citizens. It's not just about big or small government. It's about smart government. It's about not vetoing our stuff for our roads and bridges, because you know what? We need it. And as Ronald Reagan said, that's the responsible way to do these things. I'll end with a quote. Anytime I hear my dad talk and I hear talk about our family, I'm reminded by this quote by Ronald Reagan. And I just heard today my son, who is about to graduate from the Citadel, will take a commission and pilot Apaches for the United States Army. But the quote is that freedom is never more than a generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children through the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. I thank you all for all you do for our great state and for this community. God bless you all. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you. Jack, and then...
Can we hear a little more on roads? That was real quick.
Sure. I know. Well, it's something I was worried about time. I got so much. So roads, I fought like heck to get the couple of investments we had. One to fix the malfunction junction problem, which that's in the hopper and being worked on. You know, the roads bill I thought was the responsible way to go about it. I was for it. If I'd been governor, I would have signed it. And I think at the end, the next question now is about what we spend on and when, and how we get it actually put out. So I want to have, and I will as governor, a very transparent process that any project that is being funded, you can pull up and see how much it's costing in administration and what's coming out of that penny and what's being delivered and why it's important. I would like to focus on the priority needs, particularly our load-restricted bridges and roads that have been a real problem for companies like Michelin, who have to do an extra 60 miles to get their products to the coast. I think there are some priorities that we need to meet. I also think there's some rural infrastructure that needs to be done. I'd like to expand our general aviation options to deliver better economic opportunities for rural parts of our state. They have some long-needed infrastructure, and so I want to put that as part of it. So, yes, sir. Bernie.
Could you briefly tell us how you won the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart?
A bunch of really great guys around me who did all the heavy lifting, and I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time, and had some great people who have. The Bronze Star is a service award, so it wasn't a valor, although I tell you, there are many. There's a whole long story that I have time to talk about that. The Purple Heart, I was on just as unlucky as you could possibly imagine, a 2-inch self-detonated device that blew my truck pretty sky high. I've got some permanent head and hearing injuries from that, but I've been very grateful to be here. I got so lucky so many times. There's no question. The truth is, luck had nothing to do with it. The good Lord just wanted me back here and got me back here. I was shot at so many times and missed, I lost count, so I'm just very fortunate to be here, Bernie. Thank you.
Thoughts on consolidation of school districts?
Yes, very good. Consolidation of school district needs to happen. The way to do this, I believe, and it's kind of like the third rail in politics. We do need to do some consolidation, but it's not going to realize this huge pot of money that's going to go all of a sudden fix all our schools, right? We can do things a lot more efficiently. What I'd set up is a BRAC-style commission. Much like the federal government has a tough time closing military bases, you come up with the oversight committee's criteria. You have a commission go through the entire state, evaluating the performance and what is most efficient and what can deliver the resources to support teachers in the classroom. Come up with a recommendation, voting it up or down before the General Assembly, and that is the best way, I think, to get a rational, thoughtful process completed that can somehow get beyond some of the politics that has inhibited progress in that area in the past. And I think that's worked with base closures and realignment, and it certainly worked with school districts. And I've supported the ones that we've had already, Phillips. I've supported those that have come through, the Orangeburg one and some of the others. Yes, sir.
I got one question for you, and that is that when you're talking about repairing and maintaining the highways and that sort of thing, has the legislature approached any sort of thing on state level about cleaning up these highways? We got the nastiest state I've ever been in my life.
No question about it.
You get to South Carolina, it's like walking into a sewer.
Absolutely. And none of these things, let me tell you, I think that, well, those things are certainly options, but I think it's fundamentally about leadership. I think we have got to have, I think, a governor who gets up every day and delivers on positive leadership for our future. And I will clean up the roads. And the ways we do that, I think, is both through a sense of pride that we all share. I mean, you look at these things, and they do not reflect who we are as a people. And that's why I think we are ready for a time in our state where I think the people of our state are willing to invest in our own future and to our people and places, because we have not been doing that. So I think part of that is going to be making sure that we not only fix the roads, we clean them up. We've been investing in something called Palmetto Pride, which has been largely a PR program. And they do some really good work, and I know a lot of the folks over there. But we need to focus more on making sure we're cleaning up the roads, not just talking about it. So, thank you.
It puts things into perspective when you're standing next to somebody who says, 2-inch little device blew my truck sky high. Thank you for your service to this country and to the state and the State House. We appreciate you. I'm going to let Stephen tell us who we've got next week.
Next week we have Karen Coltrane coming. She's the CEO of Adventure Children's.
All right. And we're going to go ahead and end in song.
Yes.